Study production, and we're going to look this morning at what is the New Testament. In our last clip, we looked at what is the Old Testament, but the Bible is divided into two sections. You have 39 books of the Old Testament, and a better concept, perhaps, or a better word, maybe would be the First Testament, or the first God's first will, or part one, perhaps, as the word old implies useless, no good, throw it away, that kind of a concept. So, but it is old because it's older in time. It goes from around the year 14 to 1500 BC down to about 400 BC when Malachi finally writes his prophecy there in the last book of the Old Testament. Now, in the New Testament, we have the purpose of the New Testament is at least three or fourfold. Let me present that to you. First of all, it's a section of the Bible with 27 books. There's 27 books. The first four books are called the Gospels. The Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We're all very familiar with those. And the Gospels present to us the person and the ministry of Jesus Christ. He comes through Mary in Bethlehem. He performs all kinds of great miracles. He's teaching. He is gathering his disciples together. Later in the book of Acts, the disciples go to and fro, and they also preach and teach and do miracles. But Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the Gospels, and they present to us the person and the ministry of Jesus Christ. Now, the book of Acts, however, stands alone. It's a book that's very unique, and the church is established. See, the ascension of Christ takes place in chapter 1. After the resurrection in the Gospels, now we have the ascension. Christ goes back to heaven, and after that the church catches the fire and the vision of reaching out to people. So basically the book of Acts is a record of the church history of the early church. You have the first miracles and the first preaching and the first converts and the first churches established. Later you have two people that are very dominant in the book of Acts. That's Peter and Paul, especially Paul. And he travels all kind of places and establishes churches. And it says that the word of Christ and the word of God was known throughout the regions. So the church was really on the ball, and they caught fire and spread the great message of the person and works of Jesus Christ. So you have the Gospels that present him. In the book of Acts, the person and ministry of Christ is spread. Then you get into Romans. These are called epistles or letters. By the time the epistles were written, a lot of questions came up in the early church. Churches were established. Early converts and church leaders had questions. And so men like Paul the Apostle and Peter and John and Jude, some of these guys, wrote these people. Even Paul wrote to a minister named Timothy and another young minister named Titus to encourage them and instruct them. So the epistles are letters of instructions. And these epistles go from Romans all the way through Jude, and they basically explain the person and works of Jesus Christ. So he's presented in the Gospels. He is shared with the world in Acts. Then he's explained what is salvation, what is the atonement, what is all these concepts. He's explained in the epistles. And then the book of then John later wrote a book around the year 95 AD called the Book of Revelation. Again, that's another standalone book. There's no book even similar to it in the entire Bible, where Jesus Christ visits him while he's on the island of Patmos under exile because of his preaching and his church leadership. He's exiled as a criminal to the island of Patmos, which is about 30 miles off the coast of the Aegean Sea, off the coast of Turkey. Anyway, Christ visits him and shares with him the entire future of what's going to happen all the way till the end of time when Christ returns in Revelation 19 to set up his earthly kingdom. So here you have the final chapter of the person and works of Jesus Christ in Revelation. So let me recount again. The Gospels present him. The book of Acts, people are sharing him. The epistles explain him. And then Revelation is the last book where we find out when he's coming again. So that is the New Testament. The word testament means will. Like you have a last will of testament, and it's read in a lawyer's office when someone passes away. And that's God's will for us. This is good news for man, and this is Christmas time, so share that good news. Let the world know that Christ is born, there is hope for mankind, and it all begins with you reading the Bible and catching a vision of what Jesus Christ can do for your life. Thank you for joining me. This is a Dr. Stewart Home Bible Study production. God bless.